Hello, hello. I hope everybody's doing well. We're working on some Nebula blanks. I am amazed by my daughter. So what I had my daughter do was partially solve a Rubik's Cube, and she was able to do it, and that just literally blew my mind that she was able to do it so easily. Oh my goodness. Here, there we go. Sorry, I got some light. There we go. Um, so I haven't been really super active on my lives as of the last week or two. However, I have been really busy. Let me show you some of the things that I've been working on. Um, so here we go. Let me switch cam views. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So what we've been working on is this. So we've been working on our stratified pins. So these are all M13 by 0.8 triple lead start. And then we have some M15s here that are obviously significantly larger. So I mean, you look at this section versus this section, it's pretty substantial. This section is about 12 millimeters. This one is about 14 millimeters in the widest part. So that is ultimately the difference. The cap itself this is an M15 and this is an M13, which means that this is 13 millimeters, this is 15 millimeters. And so the sections are actually -1 when you're making them. So again, this is 12 millimeters, this is 14 millimeters. That way that the cap goes over the section. The other thing that we've been working on, well, I've been working on, is stay is these are cherry blossom. These are cherry blossom, and so from here to here are already sanded and polished. We do have a couple that are not quite sanded and polished. Don't get don't worry about like the length of these, because the stand itself is slightly different when it comes to the size. So don't get wrapped around that as far as like these all being uniform. It's not that. These caps will have finials. That's why you see two different marks on these babies, because what I need to do is actually cut these at the top, taper them, cut a recess, and then the point of doing that is so Abby can do a little designer kind of finial in the top. But the barrels are, most of these are done. So from here to here, these are all barrels of the cherry blossom that are done. And then these are caps that have yet to be done. So kind of a work in progress. Once they are all done, they will look something like this. So this is one of the barrels, this is a cap, and then you can see that there is a space here where there is room for a finial. And there's going to be a polymer clay finial that some artist has done. Abby knows the artist. I'm not sure of the artist off the top of my head. And then the sections of these are right here, where majority of these are, you know, quite brown. However, they will show some pink sparkle, but some of these actually have quite a bit of pink inclusion of them, so that's pretty awesome. This is actually the most roughest, I guess, form of what they look like at the moment. So those are what the fountain pins are looking like for our DC pin show, because we're going to be doing cherry blossom for our pin show. And I think that it is valuable to point out that cherry blossom is something that's quite special to see in China and Japan and even the District of Columbia. But all those areas, seeing the brown and pink contrast of the flowers blossoming is such a beautiful thing. And so for the DC pin show, that is one of the things that we're trying to capture. I've been working on other sections as well, but those are ebonite sections, and the purpose of those is for Abby to do something quite a bit different. I'll show you an example of what it is that she's working on, but this is the technique that she is, again, working on and then developing as we continue to move forward. Abby, will you pass me the shell pin, baby? Hey, will you pass me the shell pin, please? The pin that you've been working on. There we go. So a technique that Abby has been working on is this right here. So I've been working on, so I made a bunch of ebonite pins, and Abby has been working on a finishing technique that looks like this. And this is abalone shell, and it is incredibly done. Like when you rub your finger across, you might think that you would feel texture, but there's no texture. It's just completely smooth, and that is a part of what she's refining to get to a point where she's confident in offering. So this technique right here is shell opal. What kind of shell? Hey, what kind of shell?
I think it's mother of pearl.
Mother of pearl type of shell. And she's been working on this technique specifically. So I've been turning quite a few pins just for her to try this in particular out. And I think that she has finally, in this particular pin, has nailed it. It is gorgeous. One of the things with the cap is it's quite a bit of color shift. You see blue. However, if I was to tilt it, you'd start seeing purple, right? So this is just color shift. So one of the interesting things about color shift glitter is that when you look at it like straight down, it looks one way, but if you look at it the opposite, it looks a different color. And I think she's done a very good job of capturing the uniqueness of color shift. Now, for this particular pin, in my mind, this cap needs to be a little bit larger to fit with the barrel, because even though that it's proud right here, it's not girthy enough to match the barrel of this pin. So when I look at it, I don't see something that matches quite yet. However, we're really close, which is really awesome. It's incredible work that Abby's been doing. Really cool stuff that I've been working on to enable Abby to do those things. And so those are awesome. Okay, let me revisit something right quick. So we've done stratified pins. If you don't know, stratified pins are basically each layer that you see takes about 2 days to accomplish. So if you see around 15 layers, it takes about 30 days in order to accomplish a stratified pin. Now, the barrels, these barrels are actually done, and the sections are also done. The caps have yet to be done, but I do have them marked where I'm going to actually part them at the top line here. I'm going to create a recess for the finial, and then I'm going to taper them that way that they're a little greater than half an inch, because my finials that I use are half an inch large, and so this will be something that I taper to just larger than half an inch. Some of the pieces don't actually survive. I mean, you could probably imagine they don't survive the whole thing. So this is actually one of the ones that, while I was drilling it and then threading it, it ended up breaking at some point. So what I do personally is I mark it. That way we can potentially resolve it later on in our process. The sections, they start nice and girthy, real thick, and then I do my best actually to make sure that they are a part of the same color. So when Abby does the blanks for or when she's working on the specific blanks for the stratified pins, I actually have her do some of the layers a little bit thicker. That way I can make tenons out of some of these and make sure that they are long enough to cover the threads. So that's not exclusively for the barrel, but it's also for the cap, or for the sections and the cap. So this section right here, or each of the sections, you can actually see that this red and blue, for example, right here, it starts down here and goes all the way up here. And that's on purpose, so I can actually thread that part. And one of the significant parts about it is that we want to make sure that it's the same piece, because when I thread it, what can happen is when you're rotating something is that it can actually break any of the layers once you cut them too thin. So one of our stop gaps on that is making some of these areas larger to facilitate those things. So while that's not the entirety of it all, that is a significant part of what makes the stratified very different, because the way that you have to treat our stratified is me turning them a certain way, me doing my process a little bit different, And then on the latter part, Abby is actually doing her part a little bit different too. And that's something that's not really shown ever. We don't actually show that part of Abby doing her part of the stratified pins. But what it does is it creates a shell that's more resilient. Like if you happen to drop it, it should not just break as soon as it hits the ground. It should take more force in order to break, but you know that's obviously not a guarantee, because sometimes the layers don't adhere to the other layers quite the same. But that is something that we are trying to accomplish. Anyway, those are stratified. Let me show you one more thing that's pretty interesting about these. So I have been working on a M13, which is 13 millimeters by 0.8 triple lead. And then this is an M15 triple lead by 0.8. So both of these are triple lead cap to barrel, but you can see the significant size difference. It's only 2 millimeters, but when you look at it like this, you know, it kind of makes a pretty significant difference. Now, the actual barrels or sections to barrels themselves are the same. They're M10 by 1. But the cap to barrel is different. So that's something that can be altered. You know, if you're a pin maker, you can alter that by yourself. Or you can go along with that and then just maintain what you are already familiar with. So that is what those are. But for now, today, I'm just kind of doing a late night stream. And the whole point of these is to do more diamond painting pins, because once I finish these diamond painting pins, if you're not aware, the DC pin show is in about 7 days. So I've actually been working quite a bit in order to build enough inventory. Let me show you some of the other things that are on the chopping block, so to speak, for the DC pin show, because the DC pin show is coming up quite fast. So we have some of these blanks here, and then here. So my objective, my goal, is to be able to get all of these done before the DC pin show. But it might not happen, because I've got a lot of diamond painting pins to finish up before I get to that point. So, like I said, we can have a target, but you know, goals are not necessarily like the end all be all. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, we've been working on those, and I have yet to look at my YouTube comments quite yet, but yeah, we've been working quite a bit on those, and we're like 7 days out from leaving for the DC pin show. So let me take a look at the YouTube here. Hey, Shadow Work, what's up? Huge Elvis, good to see you, man. I've seen you before. Thank you for being here, man. Lawrence, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you. You like the colors and the one that checked up and always fan of the swirls? Heck yeah. And then Lawrence looks like abalone. You're not far off, man. It is quite a bit like abalone. The shells themselves is quite a bit like abalone. So yeah, you're not far off, man. Shadow, thank you, buddy. Let's see. All right. I think we're all caught up. We're all caught up. So let me kind of backtrack just a little bit. What we're working on right now are blanks called Nebula. These blanks are called Nebula. And if you're not familiar with Nebula, it is something that is pretty spectacular to see with the old naked eye. Abby could probably expand upon that, but she's busy over there. But basically, what I am working on are the Nebula pins and what they look like as of now. Oh, not that one. Oh, there we go. So when Abby is all done with these babies, they're going to look like this. So you can see quite the deep purple and like the deep like blue purple, and then some of these light purples, and then transparent, and all these different colors that are really quite popping, and it's pretty awesome, quite awesome to see when you're looking at them. But I mean, you're looking at them like this, you know, it looks quite a bit different. So yeah, Abby's working on those. I am working on these, and yeah. Anywho, I'm gonna have a sip of my beverage because I have been I've been having a beverage of sorts. Yeah. It's not Dr. Pepper, but you know, it is what it is. Johnny, how you doing, man? You know, when I looked at your YouTube, I was shocked, man. You have so many followers, subscribers. That is freaking cool. Good job. Good job, man. Good job. Mm. Lawrence, you're giving up on making fountain pens. It's not economical. Hey, man, you know how it is. You know how it is. Sometimes things are really slow until you learn how to do it, and then it gets faster over time. You know, this is no different. Yeah, this is no different than that. Oh man. But I will say, if it ain't working for you, man, then don't do it. I don't want you to waste your time. But on the other hand, it's one of those things where if you get faster, then you know, the more repetitions you have, the faster you get, and there is a threshold at which you will not get much faster, if any faster. And so for me, I think about an hour is how long it takes me to make a fountain pen. If I had to make one from start to finish, which I might do actually once I'm done with all of these pens, because I have so many pins to make for the DC show. I've got a couple that I'll probably make by themselves. Where'd that White Walker go? Where'd the White Walker go? Do you know where it went? The two White Walkers? Oh. So, one of the things that I thought about doing is this one. This is, what's the white one called? Cloud Dancer. So we made a Cloud Dancer, and Gerald, you may have seen him in the stream before, but the cap is not quite marrying up to the barrel how it's supposed to. So what I'm going to end up doing is actually making another Cloud Dancer pin for him, because that's not cool. It's not cool on my part, so I need to do better. And so I'm going to end up making him another one. And then for my dad, I'm going to make him these, which are called White Walker, but he wants something that's on par with the Carolina Panthers. But these colors actually kind of resemble the Carolina Panthers anyways. So we're going to use these to fulfill that. I guess it is a little bit above and beyond because they glow in the dark. But, you know, they're the Panthers colors for the most part. And that's what my dad wanted in the first place. So we're going to go with that. And I'll probably do that on Friday or Saturday. I will say every day until I leave for DC is going to be working in the workshop. So it'll be pretty busy whether I'm streaming or not. But, you know, it's one of those things. Yeah. So the diamond painting pins that we're working on at the moment are something that we use to fulfill our our income. And then our fountain pens are like above and beyond. So yeah. You really like the colors of the one that's chucked up? Oh man. Shadow work. You're the man. You are the man. When are we gonna get together? I gotta sell my bike soon, so we gotta get together sooner than later. Beautiful palette. Hey, I appreciate it. Lawrence, it's mainly the price of nibs. Well, the nibs, I mean, they're the nibs themselves are about 10 to 20 bucks. So 10 to 20 bucks will get you a nib. Now, the main thing when you're working with different kinds of nibs is like retrofitting the nibs that are available. So, if you wanted to do something that was easier, you could do something on par with the Bic pins that I'm working on. I don't have one handy, but I have a Bic pen, and if you could buy a Bic pen, which is like less than $1, then you can kind of retrofit that and then make something for it. And so you're essentially making a handle for that ink stick. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things where it's a little bit different than what you'd imagine, but it's pretty cool at the same time. I don't have my other example, but this pin in particular, and this is actually a prototype, so don't go off of this one necessarily, but what I have is the I have a Pilot gel pen that has, you know, it fits inside here, and then this part fulfills that. But when you actually contract it, it sticks out. You can see that it sticks out like that. This is, again, this is the prototype, but what happens is when you unscrew it, the ink stick retracts, right? So it's not there, and then you screw it in, and then it's there. So I will say that there's a lot of different ways that you can incorporate like super simple things that already exist with something that's, you know, a little non-standard. And that happens to be one of those. On my Instagram, I happen to have shown some of the other pins that I've been working on. Abby has been awesome in doing those. So, yeah. Those are actually visible now. They're quite simple. Like, it's just this, right? It's this, and then you add the cap. So, these aren't the correct caps, but you can get the gist of how these work. This is a Bic pen ink stick that's inside here. A Bic pen, if you are unfamiliar, looks like this. So this is a Bic pen ink stick. Bic, if you're not familiar, is one of the most widely known and available ink sticks, essentially, that are available. And this one in particular fits this pin. And this particular cap is not necessarily the correct cap for it, but this is a prototype, like I said. It's for me to see like what depth I need, what diameter I need, and how to catch it. when I am posting it. So when I drill into the cap, what kind of taper do I need in order to make it post? What depth do I need in order to make it fit securely? So all those kinds of things is something that I've been working on. This is another example of, I've been trying to do something like this. I don't think I like this particular design. However, it does catch when you're posting the pin, when you're putting the cap on. It covers up the ink refill, or the ink, and then it also posts on the back, so it won't just fly off. So that's something that I've been working on in order to make it so it's on par with a simple crystal Bic pen. So that's something that I've been working on as well. Anyway, those are some of the things that I've been working on. I guess behind the scenes. And then one of the other, oh my God, there's a massive leopard slug. Have you ever seen a leopard slug? If you haven't seen a leopard slug, you're about to see one, because I'm going to pick it up and show you. They're pretty nasty, actually. But this one's coming inside, so I'll grab her. If you haven't seen a leopard slug, this is a leopard slug. They're really big, and they come out at night. And one of the weirdest / grossest things about them is their tackiness. They are so sticky. Like, you can see its antenna, and it's his eyes. But one of the grossest things, in my opinion, is actually the ears. he's going to my other fingers. But you can kind of see his, or her, I don't know. I think that they're hermaphrodites, actually. But you can see this massive hole. There you go. So this hole, about right here, is its ears, on par. But it's a big slug. But they're so neat. They're so neat, and they're also kind of gross at the same time. But yeah, if you look really close at the tip of these, you can see it's a little black spot that is his eyes, or her eyes. I don't know which one it is. it doesn't know which one it is because, again, it's a hermaphrodite.
Ew.
It's a hermaphrodite, which means that it's a boy or a girl, depending on what it needs.
Why? Have you done anything? You have a lot to do.
It's a hermaphrodite.
You have so many things to do.
It's so cool. This is the leopard slug. Abby's telling me that I have a lot to do.
We're not going to have anything to show.
Sorry, I was playing with the leopard slug. It's so cool. I love nature, man. Nature is so fascinating. Anyway, this is a slug, a leopard slug, and they do come out here in North Carolina at night pretty often. Anyway, I'm gonna put them down. Oh, look at that. Nasty. Ugh. They're so cool, but nasty at the same time. Bradley. Oh my goodness. You're a new person. How you doing, Bradley? I'm sorry I haven't given you any attention here. I've been chatting and, hanging out with a slug, I guess. Ugh. They're so slimy. They're so slimy. Anyway. Let's see. Ah, you're dealing with rodent-sized roaches on your deck in Georgia? Yeah, they're known as palmetto bugs. Yep. Bradley, you wake up too early. Hey, brother, I'm sorry. Sorry, man. Yeah. We got some evening bugs here, to include slugs. But I'm working on diamond painting pens, and if you're unfamiliar with diamond painting pens, it's kind of like paint by numbers, which each diamond painting pen acts as a handle to grab what's called a drill, which is essentially a rhinestone or different kind of stone with putty or wax, and then it places it on a canvas. So somebody places it on a canvas, and that's essentially what diamond painting pens are. And that is primarily what I have built. Abby and I have built our business around, is essentially diamond painting pens. Let me adjust this camera right quick. Whoop. There we go. So that's essentially what we've been working on. All right. 2 in the morning. Yeah, man, we gotta get it on a ride. How long are my blanks? These blanks are 5 inches, 5.5 inches, 5 to 5.5 inches, and let's see. So 5 1/4. 5 3/4. Yeah, 5 3/4. Yeah, about 5 3/4, or 135 millimeters, depending on where you're from. So that's how long these particular blanks are. However, we do different sizes. Yep. To do something with the G2 refill. Hey, yes sir. G2 refill would be dope. Seen an Australian red dot spider in our yard. Oh no! You know what's crazy is the other day I guess yesterday I came across a red velvet ant, which is actually a wasp that doesn't fly, which is crazy. It looks like an ant, but it's 3/4 of an inch long, and it doesn't fly. I tried to catch it. I tried to catch it, but it is called a, they're known as cow killers because of their sting is so painful. Or red velvet ant, again, it's not an ant. It is a wasp, a flightless wasp that dwells on the ground, obviously, because it doesn't fly. But it's pretty freaking fascinating. Ice Cube Feller looks very comfortable, like set the standard Bix. Yes sir. That thing is gigantic. Yeah, man, that slug was pretty big. You do have a question. You added your first ink view window. Hey, dude, you add an ink window? Freaking dope. Your question is, where on the body do you place the window? Mine will just be under the cap threads, so Huge Elvis, that sounds like a perfect position for it. Just under the cap threads, just under the cap, and then you have a little ink window, because the converter will sit inside of the section, and then for people that want to see the available ink, they want to see it like that. So I think that your positioning is fantastic. Yeah, I think that your positioning is great, man. All right, we're doing this size, or this shape, I mean. And I have a shape chart. If you haven't seen it before, it looks like this. Boom. I have different shapes And what Abby does is she tells me what shape she wants something to be, and then I go off of that. But yeah, let's get to turning. All right. You've seen bright red furry ground wasp. I've always squished them. Oh man. Well, I mean, to be fair, they're parasitic. They're parasitic creatures. So if you didn't squish them, they would eat. Their babies, rather, would eat something from the inside out. So, not a big deal. Let's see. The question is, where in the body do you place the window? Where on the body do you place the window? I would say that it is more likely towards the end of the section, or towards the end of the section where the converter begins. So here's a converter, and then the sections. Here we go. So this is a section, and then a nib would go into the section like this, and it would seat, right? And then the converter would go about here. So this is the converter seated on the back end of the section. So your ink window would be about right here. Your ink window would be about right here. So a ½ inch from this area to, depending on how long your section is. So if you made a 20 millimeter section, it would actually be more on par, because this one actually sits like this inside the section. This one sits about like this. So the ink window would cover from this part right here to a little bit back here. That way you know how much ink is remaining inside the pen that you're making. So I would say if you made a 20 millimeter section, then it would range from 25 to 30 to 35 millimeters or so, right? Because the actual pen itself sits like this. But if it's sitting inside about like this, you can see that the difference would be about, you know, half the threads here to, you know, anywhere that you wanted to see the threads or see the actual window itself. So there's not a hard and fast rule. It's because it's custom, and you do whatever it is that you want to do. But in general, that's kind of like what it would be showing. But working on diamond painting pins, these are about here. The mark, that is. So this is more or less a custom shape that I have come up with that is comfortable for diamond painting. So, well, my tool is at that bottom here. What I'm actually looking at is up here where it's going when I introduce the tool to the material. And then I always keep a toothbrush handy. That way you can get rid of some of the noodles that get stuck. Whoop. Yeah. So once you get done with the thing is, when you're working on things that have a variety of shapes that are complex in the middle or in the areas in between, what you want to do is make sure that you focus on the centermost area first, and then work your way to the outsides. And that is because the blank is supported mostly by this side here and this side here. When you work on that particular area, it ends up being simpler, and it allows you to be working with the most, I guess, durable part. It's a bit chippy because I rotated my carbide, and it is significantly sharper the way that it is now. So that is why it chips out a little bit. However, it's just a matter of being patient, figuring out where the cutting edge is, and then slowly introducing that to the dimensions that you're going for. You see that some of these areas have been quite chippy because I've been being a little bit more aggressive than I should have been when working on the trimming down to diameter. So these rings themselves need a little bit of revision here. To reduce their diameter to be both smooth and on par with the rest of the pin here. But then once we get that how it's supposed to be, then we're good to finish up the ends, which this particular end needs to be reduced in diameter to be on par with this end's diameter. Boom. So this is a little bit thinner than what we would normally do, but that is because it was drilled slightly offset. And that is not a huge deal. You just need to make sure that everything else is on par with what it is. You added your first interview window in the body today. Your question is, where on the body do you place the window? Yours will be just under the cap threads, so way up under the converter. That sounds fine, huge Elvis, by the way. It sounds like a good position for it to be. It's the advantage between centers instead of a mandrel, and that's the length and drill pat and shape on the mandrel. So the difference between centers and on a mandrel is one of those things that you want to make sure that it lines up the way that you want it to be, but turning between centers, so this is a 60-degree live center, well, this is a dead center, this is a live center, and these bushings make it so I turn actually between centers. And when you're working on something that goes all the way through, I assume that's what you're talking about, there is a significant you don't have to worry about the run out aspect of it, whereas if it was chucked, if you were turning something that was chucked on the headstock, then you wouldn't have to really worry about the part where it goes out. Turning between centers is basically ensuring that the center of this is also the same as the center of this. So it's valuable because these things here make sure that you are turning it dead center. And like I said, turning between centers ensures that the blank itself that you're turning is actually perfectly in line with the middle. So because this, when you use bushings that are between centers, the 60-degree live center, what you're ensuring is that this matches up with this, and that makes it so everything is centered and it turns correctly in the first place. But yeah. It is getting to be a little bit late, so I might revisit a stream tomorrow. But ultimately, turning between centers is always going to make sure that your blank that you're starting with is, I guess, true, and it's turning what we call true. So if I was to mount it here, and then I was to put it here, which is not how you should turn these pins, but if there's any wobble, you would notice it, or you would see it, in which case it is not that, because this is actually turning between this center and this center. When you turn between centers, it works how it's supposed to, and you don't have any issues with any of the like run out. You don't have issues with the other potential things that you would run into. But yeah. Alright, let me switch to the overview. And basically we're gonna wrap up. So the ones that I've been working on are pretty straightforward. There's bushings that make it so I can turn between centers, and those are going to be pretty constant. And the main thing with that is that when I give it to Abby, she is also able to turn between centers, and you don't need to do anything special in order to make it spin or turn flat and level, because it is already turning how it's supposed to. There are things that you can do that are offset, and you can do that on purpose, or you can do it by accident. But as far as turning between centers, it's always going to be centered, if that makes sense. So turning right here on the dead center and then turning against the live center is always going to be right, meaning that when you turn it between centers, it's going to make it so it is turning true. And when it's turning true, you're not going to have any like wobble. You're not going to have any other issues like that. And that, I will say that that's one of the important things, especially when you're turning a fountain pen or something that's like on a mandrel. You want to make sure that the live center is against that particular mandrel, causing it to turn true. If it's not turning true, what you'll end up with is a kind of a wobble at the end, and that is not good. So what you want to make sure of is that everything is turning true, and the way that you do that is by turning between the dead center and live center. And the way that I do that with diamond painting pens is by using specific bushings that are it goes into here, which is a 7/32, or I don't remember what the metric is, but it's about 7/32, and then on the back side there is a 60-degree live center slash dead center connection point that every single diamond painting pin that I turn goes to. Every single one goes to a dead center slash live center that is a 60-degree, and it is between centers. And that pretty much ensures that the blank that you're turning is going to be turning true. I guess that's kind of a way of saying that it's going to be turning flat and level. So that's kind of what that means. Yeah. So we did turn quite a few diamond painting pins just now, but you always want to make sure that you use the tailstock as support. For example, when I do turn these caps for the stratified pins, I already have a little indentation to be turning these the way that they're supposed to be, the way that they are flat and level. Let me show you. Okay, here's one. So this pin, I chucked it, and then I drilled it, and then I tapped it, and then when I tapped it, I actually flipped it around. That way it went onto my mandrel, and then I created a little indentation here, which ensures that it's centered, which is something that I used to get wrong. I used to get wrong because I was not doing it supported when I was turning it. However, now when I turn it, it's actually supported by the tailstock, which is a live center. It holds it so it's centered, which means that there's no run out, there's no issue with it being like offset. It ensures that it is how it's supposed to be and how I want it to be when it comes to turning true, right? Because turning blanks or turning pins true, right? It means that it's spinning consistently, which is important, especially when you're trying to do something that matches up to the other thing. For example, this barrel, right? This is a barrel, this is a section, and then this is the cap. When you try to turn it true, the barrel should line up with the cap, because the cap is also supported by the same tailstock to make sure that it is all level and flat. So that's that. Yeah, I think that's sufficient to answer your question. What's the advantage of between centers instead of a mandrel? Between centers is going to turn your blank more true, and a mandrel will make it so it's holding that particular piece as true. So it's better to turn between centers. However, you'll have a mandrel. So, for example, like tomorrow or the next day, I'll actually be turning fountain pen caps. And what that will do is I will be changing this into a collet chuck. Oh, let me switch views right quick. What that means is I'll be turning on a collet chuck, which will look something like this. So I'll bring this back. Just a moment. Let me switch it out, because this is just a dead center. A mandrel. So this is a collet chuck. This is a collet, and then this is the mandrel. And then turning this, I'll put this on, and it'll be turning relatively true, right? It's turning pretty true. But I'll bring the tailstock up to make sure that while I'm turning it, it doesn't do something like this. If you pay attention to my finger, this is what the mandrel could make the pin do, right? So if it's just turning true, my finger wouldn't actually be spinning at all. It would just be turning like this. It would be turning straight, flat, and happy, right? But if there was any deviation there, it would cause the base of it here to be turning correctly, but the end of it, like the run out portion of it, would be turning a little bit more aggressively on the outside, right? So that is the purpose of keeping the tailstock engaged with the actual main part of turning, because of the run out portion of it. When you keep it in there, it will not allow the run out to be it will not allow the run out to be too drastic. It will be still in line with what it's supposed to be, but if it was a lot of run out, then what would happen is that your cap, in this case, your cap would be doing this on just the back side of it, but it would still match up with the barrel. And the problem with that is that the section in the nib itself will not seat correctly when you do that. But anyway, I hope that made sense. If it doesn't, I'm sorry. I'll have to give it another shot the next day or so. The advantage between centers. Yep. Put it back. Welcome back, Lawrence. You've seen the turn between centers mandrel set from PSI. Right on. You get what you mean. Did you already drill center hole through the pin? Yes, I already did drill the center hole. And the center hole, if you take a blank and you drill a hole into it, the main thing is that if you drill into it and you thread it, that part will be centered. However, the outside will not be centered. And so what you'll need to do is make it so that it will be centered when you are completing the pin. Let's see. If I started with a square and it was offset, it doesn't really matter that the particular blank is offset, because I drilled the hole in the center. When it does matter is when you flip that blank around and put it on the mandrel, in this case, and ensure that there is a support for the center focal point that is commonly messed up. I've messed it up many a times, and other people mess it up because they don't know any better. But if you keep it consistent or constant, then you won't have issues. Let's see. Yes, when you shape on the mandrel, you have to make sure that it is also supported on the tailstock side, because it will be like this. It will be, if I was to drill something and then put it on here, it would be correct closest to the headstock portion. However, the run out portion would be more drastic. Let me switch camera views again. So, if I was to drill here, it would be straight, right? It would be straight on the base portion. However, when it comes to the part that sticks out, it would cause it to be like this. And this is called run out. And if the run out is too drastic, it will end up the wrong shape. So that is why you support it with the tailstock. When you support it with the tailstock, it makes it so everything is straight and constant. Let's see. Do I have anything? I guess I could do this right quick. Give me a second and I'll prep this. Let me prep this right quick. Ugh. Okay. So here is a barrel mandrel, and this is a M15 by 0.1 or by 0.8 triple lead, and this on the inside is M10 by 0.1 or by 1. So this is what it looks like when it's turning. Now I have made it so this is straight and true, but if we take a look at it, it's straight and flat right here, but when I move out here, you can't really see it. Let me try to figure out a way to show you here. Let me use a pencil. This will work. So if I hold the pencil right here, it's not moving, right? It's just straight and flat. But if I move it here, you can kind of hear it vibrating, right? Anyway, it does vibrate because here it's turning true, which means that it is straight and flat. But out here on the back side, it is actually turning like this, like my finger is doing, which means that if I was to just try and turn it like this, it would be offset because this has more slop. It's sloppy. However, I bring my tailstock up for support, which makes it turn straight and flat. So everything ends up being flat when I introduce my tailstock to it. Everything ends up being straight and flat. One of the common things that I personally have done, and that I see quite a few people do, is they turn the pin like this. And what this does is it makes this back end portion really offset because it's not straight and flat, because it's not supported and it's not turning straight and true. So here is really flat, and then it starts vibrating more and more on the back side here. So that's something that I actually made the mistake of many times. I've done I got a beetle. We got a little bug. He came in from outside. Get out of here, you. Anyway, so this turns straight. However, something that is static at the front part is not necessarily static at the back part, because it's turning so fast and it's tight at the front but loose at the back. And so what that causes is something that like this. And so the reason you use your tailstock as support is because it fixes that little problem right there. Now that's going to cause a little bit of waste. You're going to have a little bit from the barrel and or cap that you don't need. It's going to cause a little bit of waste, but it'll make sure that everything else is turning straight and true. That's one of the problems that I had for quite a while. Because I was trying to sand it and polish it when it was turning like this. So it was turning, but it was the very end of it was turning like this. And so if you can imagine something that's spinning like this, you're only actually touching part of it or turning part of it. And that caused some problems for me when I was working on trying to get a pin made. But I finally figured out that that was the actual problem that I was dealing with. So you support it, and then when you're sanding and polishing, you sand it at a much lower speed, so your sandpaper has constant contact with the barrel and or cap to make sure that you're turning it true, right? So that's that. And I'll have better examples in the next few days or so, but that's essentially what one of the problems could be if what you're doing ends up out of round, right? That's potentially one of the problems. You have to turn to manual set. You get what you mean. Right on, right on. Did you already drill the center hole through the pin? Yes, I already drilled everything that I needed to and threaded all I needed to, by the way. You're thinking fountain pens, body may be for you, big pens, yes. Drill them first and use a proper size drill bit. Yep. Tonight you learned that you could probably blank between centers, and you put them in the collet and have to take out to get both ends. Tonight you learned that you could probably turn blanks between centers. I'm not sure what you mean. But let me show you something pretty interesting. let me show you something right quick. Let me show you something. Huge Elvis. Let me show you something right quick. All right. Let me reconfigure. Just a moment. This is for you, my dude. Let me get set up for you. Just a moment.
What?
I love you. I mean, I love you too, Elvis, but I'm talking to my wife, you know. All right, so let me show you something right quick. Okay, so whatever. If I was going to turn a blank, whoop. So if I was going to turn a blank like this, right? You can have a 4-jaw chuck, and the reality is it doesn't matter whether you have a 3 or 4-jaw chuck. You can start with a round or a square. You know what? What would you rather me start with? A round or a square? Would you rather me start with a square? Because that's more complicated. I'm all right with that. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It really, really, really does not matter. Because if you're doing it correctly, it will not make a difference. Okay, so I'm actually just going to start with this one right here. So this is actually where my barrel is going to be. My barrel is going to go about right here. Okay? So I'm going to use my 4-jaw chuck, and I'm going to grab it like this. I'm going to make sure that it's set and everything, right? Because once you set it, it cannot deviate. If it does deviate, you'll have different problems. So set it, and it cannot move until you're done with the particular piece, right? This is going to be a barrel. Okay? So I've set it up to where this is going to be my barrel. So you can see that this particular blank is a square. Yeah? It's about 1 inch by about 1 inch. That's not like exact, but it's about that much. So if we wanted to see, so 2124, oh shit, sorry, my bad, let me fix that. It's about 21.6, okay, it's 0.85 or 21/30 seconds, so 2160, right? It's about 2160. That is the starting point here. So if I turn this on and I take my tool and I'm going to face it, I'm going to face the blank itself, meaning I'm just trying to make it flush, right? I'm just trying to make the blank itself nice and flush, which we're pretty good. Now I'm going to take the corner of my carbide here And I'm going to do a little indent because that's going to be my center punch, my center focus when I drill it. Come on now. That's going to be my center focus. There we go. Okay. We're going to turn it off. That was weird.
The fuck was that?
I don't know what that was. I think it was, I don't know. Anyway, so I'm going to grab my, I got my Jacob's chuck. And I'm going to use my Jacob's chuck to prepare this particular blank for being a barrel. Now, I use a 23/64 inch drill bit for being a barrel. Now, I'm not going to be turning this at the speed that I would be turning, but I am going to get it set, and then I'm going to reduce the speed. So the speed is approximate. Oh, that's what it was. It was the four-jaw chuck that was coming loose. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drill until my stop collar. So my stop collar is actually factoring in the tenon for a barrel to accommodate the converter as well as the threads for the cap. So here we go. So I'm going to drill in. I'm going to get to a certain point where it feels like there's a lot of resistance, and then I'm going to just back it off. And then I'm going to do it again. I'm going to reverse my spindle here, and then I'm going to advance, make contact, and then set it, and then advance. And we're going to move forward. Once it gets to a significant resistance, I'm going to reverse it. I'm going to move it back. I'm going to clear the flutes of the drill bit. I'm going to bring my Jacob's chuck back, and then I'm going to advance it again. Move it in, set it, and then advance. And then we're going to get to my stock collar, and then we're going to reverse it. We're going to clean the flutes, and then we're going to take it off. Now, the next step is to grab my M10x1 tap. I'm going to go ahead and move my tool rest because I don't want it to interfere with that. This is M10x1, and I'm going to advance this. I'm going to reduce the speed, and I'm going to, right now it's actually turning about, probably about 300 RPM. So it's not like really fast, but I'm going to be ready to send it to reverse. So I have marks on my tap that's about a little less than about 3/4 of an inch in. So I'm going to bring my tailstock in contact with this particular material. And we're going to make contact. I'm not going to lock the tailstock. Do not lock the tailstock. You want to keep it loose. And then also be ready for reverse or off. If you don't have a reverse, off. Okay? So, I'm going to advance my tap here. Going to advance, make contact, move to my mark, and then I try to reverse it, but because my lathe is actually at the top end aspect of itself, it's not meant for torque, it's meant for speed. So it stopped, or I stopped it rather, right here. When I tried to reverse it, it did not have the power to do that. If I had changed the gears, it would work fine. However, I'm not going to do that. You're just going to move the headstock reverse. So you move it back, and this is loose, right? Because this can travel left and right. This can travel, no problem. Okay. This is now free. Perfect. Now, what I want to do in this particular case is I want to go ahead and make a tenon for this because it's going to be my barrel for an M13, right? So I have a plug cutter, which is about 1/2 inch, which is 12.7 millimeters, which is about what I want it to be, right? So I'm going to turn the lathe back on. We're going to make sure that it's turning forward, actually, and then we're going to go ahead and hit it. So we're good. That plug cutter is the reference point. It's not the guide, or it's not the final guide. It is a reference, okay? So we're going to turn it up, and what we're going to do is we're going to take the banjo and we're going to move it up, and we're going to go ahead and trim some of this back. Boom. Okay, so now we actually have our tenon that we're going for, and it is complete, right? It's complete. Let me go ahead and measure it, because what we're looking for is, oh shit. $12.91. Okay, $12.91. That is good enough. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Jacob's chuck out, and we're going to go ahead and grab the die holder. So this is called a die holder, and we're going to match, we're going to make contact, right? We're going to make contact, and we're going to go ahead and cut the threads. Threads are now made. Boom. So threads are now made, and they are beautiful. The threads, just trust me, they're beautiful. So what we want to do is actually take these and take some sandpaper and kind of bevel them a little bit. Right? We're going to take some sandpaper, we're going to bevel them. It's actually a little bit long, so we're going to reduce them a bit. There we go. Now we're going to bevel them. So I want them to be slightly rounded, and I also want to pay attention to the inside. And I'm going to hit the inside just a little bit as well, which feels good now. Okay. So now we're actually really good. This, because I drilled it the way that I did, because of the tenon that I made is now good. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get my other collet. I'm going to take this out, and then I'm going to take the collet, and I'm going to get my center mark, because this is already set. This is good, right? You can see, boom, and it's already threaded on the inside. Boom. This is going to come out. So my 4-jaw chuck is going to come out. Oh, damn. Boom. Okay, let me grab my oh, there we go. I'm going to grab my mandrel that is for the barrel. This is my barrel mandrel. And a collet here. And so I'm taking this square, right? This square has no reason to be perfectly in round. However, I put it in round. I put it how it's supposed to be, right? So I'm going to take it, I'm going to put it in, and then you'll be able to see that it matches up right here and it fits flush perfectly. However, this back end, it doesn't make sense. It should be like this, right? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to take a Jacob's chuck, and then we're going to take a center start bit, and we're going to turn it slow. We're going to turn it slow. Going to bring it in. We're going to make sure that this is set. Tailstock is set. Now we're going to reduce the speed, and this is going to move nice and slow. So this is our focal point, and this is a square, right? Now this back side is going to go ahead and put a center start in the back of the blank, right? So we got a center start, and then this is going to come out. And then I'm going to grab a live center. And then this live center is going to be a reference point. So this is a square blank. There's absolutely no reason this should be centered, right? Except I drilled it centered. So here's what's going to happen. It's already set. The tailstock is supporting it. I have it set nice. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just basically knock off the corners of this particular blank. Right? I knocked off the corners of the particular blank. And the next thing that I care about really is setting it up to be a barrel, right? So this is now turning true between this mandrel and this tailstock, just like turning between bushings between centers. So if I watch this, I'm turning this is turning flat and true, right? If I back this off, my tailstock support, it's still turning flat and true because my tailstock was supporting it in the first place. Now, if I was to try and turn this as is, it might not actually be turning true anymore because it's unsupported. You want to make sure that the blank is supported when you're turning it into something that is supposed to be in line. So it's in line. It's in line from the headstock, which is over on this side, and the tailstock, which is over on this side. It's turning true between those 2 points, right? Now, if I was to try and turn it like this, it would cause this end to be like this. It will be turning out of round, which would make it so this back side, or the front side rather, would not match up with the back side, which is why we support it with the tailstock. We support it with the tailstock so everything lines back up between the headstock and the tailstock. And that is how it's supposed to be. Now, for this particular blank, I'm going to go ahead and actually just turn it all true. That way I can mark everything and reference everything how it's supposed to be for when I do use this particular blank. ran into a couple problems, particularly this back end at the very end, and then also this spot right here. Again, not like a showstopper or anything. It's just more of a, I need to make everything match up. When you're turning something like a stratified blank, you end up with a lot of variation. So, not necessarily the greatest example, however, it does work fine enough. You can see some of these are a little bit deeper than others. And it's partially because some of these layers are comprised of different material. It's all resin, however, some of it is like alcohol ink, or it is like mica powder, or something like that. So it actually turns slightly different. And that's what I am talking about. Some of these things turn slightly different than others. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter because I'm turning between a headstock, which is turning it a constant, and then it's supported by a tailstock, which is also a constant, right? So this particular size right here is going to be about this much. So if I take another blank and I estimate the size that I'm going to be using, it's about right here. So this is a barrel that's already done, and then this is a barrel that is in the works. So if I take the threads and the size and I match it up, it's going to be about mid this pink layer right here, which is not that big a deal. However, if I was to back this off, the tailstock that is, and I was to move it, it's turning true. Again, because it was supported in the first place. It was supported by the tailstock, so it's all turning true between here and here. If it was not supported by the tailstock, it would be turning like this, which isn't the end of the world. However, it will make the back end of the pin very narrow or thin, which is not what you want. So, this particular one is an example. I'm going to go ahead and take it off. This is a single start, which means that no matter what, every time I thread this blank or this barrel onto this mandrel, it will be the same, no matter what. It's a single start. If it was a cap, then it would be a triple lead, which would mean that there's 3 different positions it could be in. And only one would be the same as how I turned it. But that's something I suppose for like an advanced thing. This is a single start and it is perfect. It doesn't matter what you put on there. If it's set, you turn it, you can take it off and it will always be the same when you put it back on, which is awesome. If it's a triple lead, it will only be perfectly right one time out of 3. So, we're just going to stick with the 1. This is how it's supposed to be. If I take any, here is another barrel that I have done previously. If I take this barrel and I put it on, it should turn true, which it does, right? So it's flat here, and it's also flat back here. If it was not turning true, it would be flat here, and then it would be wonky right here. Again, it would be like this on the back side, which is not what you want. I don't think I actually have an example of that particular thing because I turned them all the same way, but you'll just have to take my word for it, or you'll have to experience it yourself. But yeah, single start, it'll be the same every single time. Every time you put it on, it'll always be correct. Triple lead, let me show you a triple lead. So here's a cap. It's in this collet. Let me show you something kind of interesting. Okay. So, it's turning true, which means that I got it right the first time, which is kind of annoying. However, if I took it and I reversed it to be offset by 1, if you can believe it, it's actually offset slightly. The end back here is slightly offset. It's turning more like this. Here's another one. Yep, it's the same. So this end is actually turning like this, where this back end, this area right here, is turning like this. So it's slightly off. When you use a triple lead, it only matches up perfectly one time out of 3. Which is this last one. Yeah. You pour your own round only 3/4 blanks in a collet, and you like your between centers idea to true blank. Yeah. Huge Elvis, you the man. Lawrence, have a good night, man. I'm about to wrap it up as well. Brian, how you doing, man? Late night show. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. DC is in about a week. A week. I'm sorry. I got the hiccup. Vinny! How you doing, buddy? Good to see you, man. Thanks for taking the time to show us the basics. Yes, sir. Huge Elvis. You have to run right on, man. I will catch you later, man. It was a pleasure hanging out with you. I will see you next time. I'm so sorry I got the hiccup, but I've been drinking. Yeah, I've been drinking. That's why I haven't been doing anything like too crazy, because, like I said. Anyway, the DC show is right around the corner too, so. Yeah, it has been a fantastic time. Appreciate you all for being here, hanging out and whatnot. I'll probably get a better stream tomorrow after I'm all rested up and everything. I've got diamond painting pens that I'm working on, and then I have a shit ton of fountain pens that I've got to get done. So, if you're interested in both of those, I will see you in the near future. And Brian, those mandrels, man, they are going to come in handy in the near future. I'm going to be working on parallel pins here. My gosh, that's embarrassing. Brian, I'm going to be working on those parallel pins here shortly. The M10 by 0.75. I'm going to be working on those. But until next time, friends, thank you for hanging out. I am so sorry I have the hiccups. But I will see you next time. Take care.